also ties with Jamaica. So we had a Caribbean home that people coming in from different parts of the Caribbean would come to our home and spend time and share. Our home was always open to people from the Caribbean. I grew up in a home. My father was involved in labor relations, and he left Trinidad in the mid-60s to travel to the Virgin Islands, part of the brain drain, where he worked in construction as a construction engineer with Hess Oil Company. So we also have in that, we had ties with in St. Croix, my sister, my elder sister, senior sister. She still lives there. Just shared 86th birthday, Earth Strong. And so we coming from a thing where in the 50s, early 60s growing up, my mother always imparted to us that her father, which is my grandfather, always wanted to see one man. And then he said, if he see that man, he could leave the planet. And that man was Their Majesty Haile Selassie I. So in 1966, when Their Majesty came to Trinidad, it was important for my mother, for us as children, teenagers, all of us, she implied that we must see Their Majesty because of his importance for us. Our house was painted inside. We had the red, gold, and green for a long time, long before it became traditional among people to paint. We grew up in a home. My mother and father was able to share with both of them because my mother and father grew up in a home of both parents. So that to me was very important for us. Very strict, and they were very much into spirituality. My mother always said that the church is a heart. The heart, you don't need to go to church. But although she implied that we went to church, but she always said that you don't have to go to church because the church is in your heart. But one of the things my father in the 40s, he was also linked with the Black Jews. He studied scriptures a lot, not only biblical Bible, but also other scriptures. So he was also pointing to Ethiopia, always pointing to Egypt, Kemet, what we know as Kemet now. And as a student of construction, we had in our homes a lot of documents and books on architecture. And here I would learn about Kemet, Egypt at the time. And so I was never one who grew up believing that Egypt was not in Africa. That was not something we grew up in. So my father and mother always taught us to be Black conscious, to always be conscious of ourselves, be conscious of our people, and to love our people. So one of the things Eric Williams taught us, he said in 1962 when he, just around the time of independence, he said the future of our country, which is Trinidad and Tobago, he said the future of Trinidad and Tobago lies in the school bags. So that was to show the importance of going to school, importance of education, and so on. Though 30 years after, the same trend who Eric Williams said the future lies in the school bags, he managed to kill many of our young people who took up arms, which I was one of, part of that organization. I was a student member of NORS, National Organization of Revolutionary Students, in the early 70s, and also became a member, not involved in the actual fighting as guerrilla warfare, but I was also involved as a member and supporter of the National United Freedom Fighters, which took on armed struggle against Eric Williams' regime and US imperialism. So I was a astute student studying Walter Rodney, studying Amilcar Cabral, very much interested on the forefront in what's going on in Africa, Pan-Africanism, and so on. So that was basically growing up in Trinidad. But as time went on, being a Caribbean person, I never really fought for Trinidad per se as time went on, because I believe that I was a Caribbean person, and Rastafari brought that, even opened my eyes to that even further. So I was one of the people who always will say, I am not, if I'm in Jamaica, I am Jamaican. And if I'm in Barbados, I am Barbadian, and so on, because I have roots. Most of these places I could trace family background to these places. St. Lucia, my uncle went to St. Lucia after the hurricane in the 1952, 53, and he helped build back, did the construction in St. Lucia. And that is the case in most of the Caribbean. So we had ties here. So I one of the people who always say, listen, I am not a believe in micronationalism. As Garvey said, Africa, you don't give up a continent for Ireland. So I'm one of those people who stand strongly on that. So you don't hear me saying, basically, judging someone because they're from Trinidad, from thing, and align with them. I ally with them. My alliance is based on what I would say. My alliance is based on what the work you do, the work you put in, and therefore that is how I link the vibration. So yes, Trinidad played a very important part in my conception, in my development, in terms of my growth, and understanding, being a person who was listening to Makanda Daga get his brains in 1970, 1971, 1972. Though we broke from him, but he always see me. So one day he saw me in Port of Spain, and he said, why a bright youth like you, want to be looking forward to Rastafari cult? And later on I wrote about it, and I said, Rastafari is not a cult. Rastafari is a way of life, is a liberty. So that is the essence of it. And you find it out because of the importance that Eric Williams paid to the books and the school, and he wrote how you put that, he wrote one of his important piece about
capitalism and
slavery, which many don't know he banned in 1970 at the height of the Black Power movement. So this is the background or the foreground that I grew up in. I grew up in a place called East Dry River, Belmont. And that was in the heights. I could walk from my home to Port of Spain, or what we call Port Africa. I could walk from my home to Port of Spain. When I started see the first set of brethren who started the dreadlock, who were moving forward from traveling to Jamaica and so on, and started to grow dreadlocks and so on. And they became, some of these were elders to me, but they became my brethren, and they loved me. So that is the foreground. Give thanks.
And so many of the other ideas that were questions were already tackled in that. So quite comprehensive. Give thanks. Ras Sekou, you mentioned a number of things. His Majesty's visit in 1966, your mother's comment about the importance of actually honoring and seeing him. And you also mentioned the kind of Black Power energy. I think you're one of those persons among us that really came in at a very important, critical time. The reign of superstars, so to speak, people like Bob Marley and others are all a part of that landscape. Just, can you give us a sense as to when specifically the consciousness of Rastafari, I know you mentioned His Majesty as having been directed to you, but when did that Rastafari cultural aspect first impact you? Was that in Trinidad, and is it before or after the visit? Where is that?
Yeah, it was in Trinidad. I remember one of my brethren passed a few years ago. I renamed him Omar. His name was Romain. He was from Dominica, and then there was another brethren who was studying engineering on campus. We call him Nati. He had dreadlocks, and so I used to reason with the brethren, and in terms of the importance of our culture, because I always see Rastafari as something that is organic to the Caribbean, not just organic to Jamaica, but organic to the Caribbean. It's the only thing that coming out of Jamaica and then spreading throughout the Caribbean that was organic, that we created. African people, Black people was able to create out of the ghettos and slums. So talking to people like Natty, and Natty would say to me, hey, you know something? He would say that their majesty is the supreme, the almighty, naturally. So I, being a student also of Marxism and very hardcore, I would look at it and listen to him, and also listen to my mother's concept of what, how she saw the concept of their majesty. So that is where the foundation came, somewhere around, I would say like 1974. I started to look consciously about Rastafari and seeing their majesty, though still being involved in revolutionary activities, but that is when that strongly became part of my endeavors. So even when in 1979, a few days after the Grenada Revolution, I went to Grenada and met with George Louison, who was the Minister of Education at the time. I was given, I brought from Trinidad, from North, I brought as a gift to the Enduring Movement, a printing press, which I gifted them. And he said to me, Maurice said to me, I always respected and loved Nuff because, Beverly Jones was killed in 1973. And he said, your braveness and what you all did in Trinidad was what inspired us in Grenada to spark the Grenada Revolution. But that, when I even served in Grenada in the militia and helping out in the Ministry of Education, I was mainly on Camp Blunt, which was right above the market, was a whole lot of Rastafari brethren was part of that camp. Was part of that camp. We used to do militia duties in the night and so on. And one of the brethren also, who was close to us, I didn't know him until I reached Grenada, but he was close to one of my brethren. They always trained together in martial arts. What do we call Ras? He was one of the first brethren. Was on the pit years throughout when the revolution came. Prince Naya, Princess Nana. So became close. We all became close, and we all would we all meet and train together at his place in River Road, and so on. So yes, Rastafari. That is the whole awareness. Rastafari becoming more central in Grenada. I started to think about the importance of Rastafari. I was one of them who I was responsible for organizing the first anniversary of the Grenada Revolution, and when Peter Tosh came in and so on. So I was a liaison with Black Starling. I brought in a whole big Trinidad delegations of cultural ambassadors that came in from Trinidad. Black Starling, Valentino, Into Springer, Malik, members of NJAC, and so on. I was responsible for bringing them in into Jamaica, into Grenada, in March 13, 1980, first year of celebration. And so on. And it was there in Grenada, I started to think about the importance of having a voice, having a media, having a platform before Grenada. But in Grenada, I started to that way it germinated the idea that Rastafari need a voice, Rastafari need a medium. And that is where I started to think about it more, and therefore I made alliance. Chango came to Grenada there. Desmond was there, Cabinda, Miguel was there. So that is later on, that is when we manifested Rastafari Speaks, coming out. We will work on Rastafari Speaks. And the first one came out in the latter part of 1980. This was how the whole germination, and we would use my house as the place, as the central point where the first Rastafari Speaks was formulated, and the work was being done in terms of graphics and everything. In those days, there was not graphics from through a computer. We used a typeset, and we had to pay. People had a couple of brethren who was great in graphics. They were the ones who basically would do the pasting up, and that kind of stuff. But a lot of us were sitting and meet in my house. I would leave the house open and tell them I'm going to bed now. And it's up to them whenever they leave, and they leave, and so on. But that was the essence and the spirit of Rastafari, and what germinated me and made me into who I am.
So Ras Sekou, you've given us a sense that the Eastern Caribbean community there's a mic open, that the Eastern Caribbean is somewhat more connected as a community, and there's cooperation beyond the boundaries that the islands impose. I suppose the idea of a newspaper that services the region is part of that vision. How you move, because you're still under 30 at this point, how you move as a young man into the vision of presenting printing material to the revolutionaries in Grenada, and then subsequently becoming your own revolutionary publisher. How did you make that transition? What preparation would you have given yourself?
Well, the preparation was that being a member of NUF, the National United Freedom Fighters in Trinidad, and as I said, that NUF was the organization from 1973 to 1975, which chose to oppose the regime in Trinidad and Tobago with armed military, right? And we lose probably about 18 young comrades at that time. But not being involved in the other heights, person in the heights, and because we had different ranks inside the organization. You have people who were supporters and members, and you have people who was involved in the actual fighting as guerrillas. But I was not a member. I was not as part of the guerrilla, but I was part of the academic studying, writing, and so on within the movement, going to do work in the community like on Laventille, going from house to house and talking to people, and so on. So we did put out newspapers. We did a newspaper we put out called Freedom Fighters, and so on. So my teeth was cut early, being a member of NOR's National Organization of Revolutionary Students in the early 70s. I was involved in seeing what was taking place in terms of the importance of a newspaper, starting to study and read about Garvey and the importance of propaganda. So as I reached Grenada, as I said, I took to give my comrades. We decided to give the Grenada government, not the New Jordan movement actually, from party to party. We decided to give them a printing press, which we used, which we had, wasn't an old one, and we that is one of the things first thing I brought to Grenada in March of 1979. So I was well prepared for this work.
My brother. So Ras Sekou, you begin what is recognized as the first international non-Jamaican Rastafari publication, which is Rastafari Speaks. And that goes on for a while with some pauses here and there. How do you reflect on that experience with that news facility as someone who, you know, there are three different expressions. There's the 80 to 83 and then, or 87, I think, and then you have a 90s session and then a 2000 session. And we are now in a virtual session of Rastafari Speak. But give us a sense as to how you saw that project as a input into the community, and it evaluated its success in your mind.
Well, in my mind, I always and still do see the importance of having a voice for Rastafari. For this, you know, Rastafari Nation is spread throughout the diaspora, throughout the world. You know, England, France, throughout the Caribbean. And one of the things about Rastafari Speaks, it was not just for Trinidad. We used to go on the street corner Shangonai, and we used to sell that people and all kind of people, not just Rastafari people, but all different people of different stratas of the society would buy the papers and so on. We would put a Barbados when we couldn't get the printed papers with the Express newspaper, which is a big newspaper in Trinidad. We would jump on the plane and go to Nation in Barbados, the Nation newspaper, and we'd print the papers. So even when some of the papers in, across the Caribbean were still doing black and white, Rastafari Speaks was doing color and as a color tabloid coming out. But we will jump on the plane, Shangonai, and go to Barbados and print the papers and stand up in Barbados on Broad Street and so on and sell a newspaper. So that was the kind of energy we had. I would jump on the plane from Trinidad and come to New York and bring 2,000 papers to Harlem and to Brooklyn and so on. So that was the kind of energy that we had. The whole idea that the Caribbean at the time, you had so much things going on. You had a Dread Act in 1974 in Dominica, where some of my comrades, some of my brothers and sisters, Vivian Trotter, older brother of Desmond Trotter, who was studying engineering at the time, all of us living in the same house, sharing a house a little bit, and so on. We had different brethren and so on. Desmond at the time, Kabinda, he was going through a hard time being set up for a murder charge against they said he had killed a honeymoon couple and so on. So the paper was very much tied in. So what we noticed is that at that time, when more and more brethren and the University of the West Indies and what we call the Federal Maple and the Federal Palm was very vital in bringing Rastafari together, because of the movement from people from Jamaica coming to study in Trinidad, and people from Dominica and people from Antigua and so on coming to study in Trinidad, and you had the boats moving around the Caribbean, one coming down and one going up. You had, of course, germination of ideas and meeting people, and that was very important at that time for people like me who so you're meeting people, different things, and you're learning from others and you're sharing your knowledge and so on. One of the things what we noticed there is that a lot of the brethren from the islands, Dominica, Antigua, and so on, they were now moving away from fish eating. So even though as Rastafari, the elders were saying, okay, some still were eating fish, within the Eastern Caribbean is when that movement of move away from fish that come. And people that they say we're going, basically all of the islands, every island is basically a place you could find seafood and stuff. But that was one of the things that came out. But the idea that we were able to meet and talk, and people were coming jumping on the Federal Maple, and when they get vacation, when the university was on vacation, one would move when they couldn't go back to Dominica. Some people couldn't go back to Dominica, who were born in Dominica, because of fear that they're going to be arrested. And one of the rules in Dread Act was to be shot on sight by Patrick John. President made it a law that he could be shot on sight. So one of the things where people were able to, instead of going back to Dominica for vacation, people would go to Jamaica, some people would go to Antigua, some people would go to St. Vincent, and so on. And that was and that became a very much conscious effort and develop and grow the awareness and growth of Rastafari. So Rastafari speaks in itself. I always see the importance of a media, of a newspaper, because being a student of Garvey developed the Nation newspaper. He developed the Black Man newspaper. And I look at that and I see the importance of the newspaper, right? To be able to bring together the ones and ones. When Garvey brought out the Black Man, and people were able to, sailors from in America, will take the Black Man newspaper and will take it, tie it under their clothing and wrap it and take it as far as Kimberley, South Africa. So, and that's how people in the Caribbean were able to get newspapers as far as Panama, Costa Rica, and so on. So I saw that studying Garvey also showed me the importance of propaganda, the importance of a newspaper. Studying their Majesty, one of the first things he set up was a press, the Bohani Press, and so on. So these are some of the things, learning from our great leaders and our great stalwarts and ones who basically is important to read. Reading is one of the key factors, I think, in terms of what and taking that reading and manifesting it into action.
So, Ras Sekou, I said it, that almost everything that was significant in terms of learning and documentation was in some way either edited, introduced, published by you. And I hear we have a publisher in Rastafari, and I'm thinking, this is something extraordinary. It must require a lot of resources. This man has to be very wealthy. And then I hear you also referring to a network, including persons like Brother Miguel and Ras Shango Bako. Can you just tell us a little about the synergy of being able to work with those brothers in order to make vision reality?
Well, one of the key things in my life is collectiveness. No one man is an island. Nobody says that to us all the time. No one man is an island. So it's important that we come together and you work together with people of like minds. And Brother Miguel was one of the brothers who was like my brother, like a family, like even sometimes even closer than my blood brethren, in that sense that it would, because we've been through so many different things over the last 40-something plus years. And we brought Miguel into Trinidad because one of the brethren in the Rastafari Brethren organization that we had, Muntu Ladibala, he had a ganja case. And we had met Miguel in Grenada. And we decided that Miguel had just gone into the bar, and we decided to bring him in. And the ex-Attorney General, Richardson at the time, he was in court. Nobody wanted to present him to the bar. And Richardson decided, Sarah Richardson, who was the Attorney General at the time, was just ex-Attorney General, he brought Miguel into the bar in Trinidad. I think it was 1980 or 81. And he represented, he stayed at my house in Trinidad. And that way we bonded more. And he would even go on the streets and play soccer, football with the youths on the street, some of the brethren who were growing dreadlocks as well, and so on. And he lost that case, but the importance of it was the bonding And that is where we were putting on Rastafari Speaks, and that is where Miguel came in. Shango was visiting from London, came in from England, and ended up staying, and we became a bond. We met, and we, when Shango and I met, and we, a period of time, and we start bonding, and that's how we started working together, and the concept of Rastafari Speaks engaged them in, and they all put their 2 pennies and their energy to bring it into fruition.
All right. I suppose, every mickle make a muckle is what we are accustomed to hearing, and you've kind of demonstrated that in various ways. I want to
say that I want to say this, that in terms of, because of being involved in the conscious struggle of Black Power movement, the trade union movement, and so on, I always saw the importance of a newspaper. But I knew I thought to put out a newspaper. Trinidad was flourishing at the time. You had on every corner, in the ghettos, across Port of Spain, across San Fernando, across Trinidad generally, and Tobago, you had a lot of Rastafari communities, right? What places that we call Little Africa and all this, and Canaan, and all these different places we found that was there. And every place you had was a Rastafari item spot. You were just an item spot all over. So when we decided to put out Rastafari Speak, one of the things I said, newspaper is built on advertising. So I said we have to go to the community, to our Rastafari brethren. This is not Sekou, and this is not Shango, and this is not Umawali, or none of all of us. We had brethren who was moving herb, who was moving incense from New York, Umawali, and so on. So what we did, we said, listen, we had to go to the I said we have to get ads. We gotta get ads from all the different item shops and brethren who's Rastafari. They had to put the money where their mouth is. And that is how the first set of issues of papers were sponsored by ads from Rastafari businesses, and so on. Where we go and hang out, people would make drinks, whether it's what they call ital drinks, blending, and so on. Peanut butter with banana and all that stuff. But everybody in the corner, everybody was happy to know Rastafari Speaks. And later on, we were getting ads from different parts of the Caribbean, because that was the connection and the link. It's important that the community must come together to make that media work. Give thanks.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of clear that Rastafari Speaks became a kind of Rastafari internet early capacity for a range of sharing and economy building, exposure. I'm sure in the same way that Marcus Garvey's newspaper got around the world, it's the same for Rastafari Speaks in terms of how it was taken up around the world and circulated as such. I want to point to a question asked by Jake. He said, did I encounter Rastafari from Jamaica traveling in the Eastern Caribbean? Mystic Revelation.
They were, as I said, Natty was one of the brethren. When Brethren Natty, I can't remember his official name, but he was studying civil engineering at Dewey campus, St. Augustine, and he became one of my close brethren. And so brethren were coming in, were studying, students coming in, and a movement was being made and as I said, the importance of the federal maple and the federal palm at the time, which was 2 boats that was used to travel up and down the Caribbean. And that is how the cross cultures came. That's how we learn more about different people. That's how we learn more about Rastafari. That's how we learn more about what's going on in Dominica, because we ourselves couldn't go to Dominica because we were banned from entering Dominica. Some parts of the Caribbean were not even allowed to go, like St. Lucia. Miguel uh, was married to a sister from St. Lucia, his first to Trent, and he was living in St. Lucia. And I was going through the Caribbean and heading to St. Croix. And I stopped in Grenada in St. Lucia, but Miguel was off island. But they gave me 23 hours to stay. That was probably about 20 something 30 years ago. Later on, I went back to St. Lucia for a conference that the Rastafari Brethren crew had set up. And in fact, the brethren who was the Prime Minister at the time, he was more grounded with Rastafari because he had studied at Mona, and therefore was more appealing to Rastafari. And therefore, once I reached it, it wasn't about how much time I want to stay, how much time I needed to stay, basically. And in fact, the Prime Minister addressed the conference at the time. So it was from one movement to another. So the university in itself basically helped to bring ones and ones together. The boats, the ships, they help to bring the movement of people, as we say, Black Stone put it most effectively in Caribbean Man and Calypso. Calypso, he sang called Caribbean Man back in the early 80s when he said, the Caribbean government carry come falling, but Rastafari growing. And that was real because the Rastafari people, they still want to know how when we see another brethren from St. Lucia or from Dominica or from wherever, he was our brethren. You didn't question whether he was what he was. You just know he was a Rasta man or a Rasta woman, and we accepted and embraced them. Give thanks.
Yeah, Ras Sekou, the vibration of Rastafari across the region has really never been assessed. We have a feeling, and but we've never really tried to determine, who across the region. And I think the movement is very, very strong in the Eastern Caribbean. The question as to what's the first Rastafari artist that you can recall arriving in Trinidad in that way that we now have regular musical exchanges between Jamaica and the Eastern Caribbean. Do you recall anyone?
Yeah. We had what you call our brethren from Birmingham. Where that group from Birmingham?
Not Steel Pulse.
As what from London.
Okay, yeah.
The group who sing Watford Revolution. What is the name of the group?
I'm sure someone knows here.
Yeah, the group they're basically from Birmingham. They sang tribute to the martyrs.
Steel Pulse.
Steel Pulse.
Okay.
Steel Pulse was very much welcome there. We had, but before that, you had a lot of a lot of my brethren was coming in like Big Youth. We call Big Youth. We don't stop calling them Big Youth then because we see no youth no more. But you had Iroy and all these people were coming in who were part of the 12 tribe tradition, and they would have the 12 tribe dances on every week, every month, different colors and so on, and they bring in a artist. So you had Brigadier Jerry and all these people, and so these were the basic forerunners before even the Bob Marleys and the Peter Tosh and so on.
Okay. Ras Sekou, I want to kind of turn attention to the catalog that you carry under the Frontline Distribution company. And I was trying to get a sense from the website, what is the full scope of that catalog? I saw that there are quite a few things that are carried. Some are republished, some are your own publications. I'm asking a question to the audience to think about your favorite Frontline publication and put it in the chat as just a kind of a bit of trivia. It's hard to have a favorite, especially when you think of Wise Mind and His Majesty's autobiography and others. But I actually do have a favorite if I were to take those out. The mission is that. Ras Miguel, sorry, Ras Sekou. Yeah, all in good standing. Ras Miguel
Yeah,
is
man, he's my brother, man. I love him like water.
Um,
My family and his family is one family.
seeing. I want to ask you, how does one get the rights to publish His Majesty's autobiography exclusively? How do you get in the room for that discussion?
Well, you know, that's a big question, but it's a simple answer. You know, I was living in England, studying in England, teaching in England, right? And so on. And I remember the autobiography was a hardback book costing over 49 pounds. I remember that when Bob Marley bought that copy, was one of the few Rastafari brethren could afford to buy a copy of the autobiography. The discount at Oxford, who was the first publisher of that book, right? Though edited by Professor Eulendorf. The price of the book was so, not too many Rastafari brethren would have been able to get that book. So when I moved, I started spending more time in Chicago, and I would go to and fro. I said, you know something? We have to get this book. This book, as a Rasta man, as a Pan-African publisher, as a Rastafari man, I have to get access to that book. So I wrote Oxford University Press, and I said to them that we want to buy the rights for the book. They sent back and said to me that the rights had now reverted back to Eulendorf. And they then gave the letter that I wrote to them to Eulendorf. Eulendorf now, Professor Eulendorf, he went through and all the list of people who wanted the book, bigger publishers than Frontline, right? We were like a dwarf to some of the publishers. But he wrote me and he said, because of what the Rastafari community, if you read his preface or his new preface to the front edition, he said, because of what Frontline Rastafari have done for the grandson of their Majesty, he would like us to be the ones to have the book to publish it. So I was on my way back to London because I didn't really fully move from England yet. I was going to and fro. I would still come to England and make incense and so on, and come back to America. So one day I told him I was coming to London, and he and his wife met me. I met them at the train station in the train, the train station that runs to the Midlands. I met them, and I met them and we talked and so on. And they said to me, I want you to put, you're gonna have the rights to this book. Only thing I require, you must put out an exact photographic edition of the book as it was first put out. And we signed a publishing contract, and he was good with it. And then when I came around to offer him royalties, he said he didn't want any royalties. That is for us. So that is why I has the position that whenever there's something going on in our community, and Frontline could contribute to it, in our Rastafari community, and I always make an effort within to make that contribution, because made sure and said, I do not want any royalties. When I offered him royalties, he said, this is because of the Rastafari community taking care of their Majesty grandson. I think it was Dawood, or was the one in England, who is tied close to the 12th tribe. He said, you will have this book. And then Secondly, so we got the world rights. That's how we got the world rights for Autobiography Volume 1. Volume 2, I wrote Michigan State Press, and they had the rights for Volume 2 because we knew there was a Volume 2. And we wrote Michigan State Press. And I went to Harold Marcus, professor then at Michigan State. They had the rights, and the person who was responsible for the publishing house wrote me back and said, Marcus would like to see me. Miguel was in town, had come to spend time with me in Chicago, and we traveled on. It was three of us. Miguel, Abba, who was still my brethren. He was he's a roommate of mine. I bring from Jamaica as well. And he was a driver. We drove to Michigan State, and we met with Marcus, and it remained as history. That's how we got Autobiography 2. We decided to put it out, both 1 and 2. We put them out in hardback at reasonable the price, and then after a year or so, I decided to put them in paperback. So our communities, I made sure and I give to all the houses available with RasTafari houses. I made sure and donated copies for the library. Some of them, people to take some of the copies for themselves, as usual, as we do. But that wasn't my business. My business was to make sure we share that, the purpose, because for me, one of the things I always believe and think and always acknowledge is that we need to know more about the High Majesty. We know a lot about Solomon. We know a lot about Joseph and Jacob and all these people, and Job and all these people, right? According to all these mythologies and mythos. But we do not know much about the High Majesty. So it was important for me to get the Volume 1 and Volume 2 to have it within the arsenal of Rastafari. And that is how we got it.
Beautiful. And you know, Ras Sekou, even before you told the story, I liked Ulenorf because of the work he did, Ulenorf because of the work he did in the book. And, you know, the painstaking, I mean, we know His Majesty chose him to do that translation, and there's real painstaking details with how that is done. So I feel it's almost as though, you know, His Majesty left him in charge for you to take custody eventually. So we give thanks because His Majesty clearly knew who he was dealing with as the right man for that experience. All right, so you've effectively entered the movement almost on a rescue mission, and I say that to mean, you know, given the fact that there is a bond paper and pen and, you know, papacy and but everything that you have sought to preserve for I and I are important parts of how we come to understand or know ourselves and further knowledge about ourselves. Have you had much problems within the community in taking on the productions uncritically? Have you received criticism because of the nature of the work? And then
Well,
just
go ahead, sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just linked to that, you know, I noticed that The Wise Mind is your best product. I'm wondering what's the demographics that take that on as a purchase. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, two questions there, and we'll answer the first one first. Yes, of course. You know, we as Rastafari people, we are, and especially our ancient brethren, you know, they question everything and so on. But that was not, I was never wary of any questioning, because I know that I'm here to do our work. And so whether a brethren whatever a brethren or a sister may think, does not worry me, because I know the works we are here for is to make sure we lift the level of awareness and consciousness among our people as Rastafari nation building and as a Pan-African people across the globe. So yes, but what was very, I must say, I could say at all, I never really get too much problems or thinking people may make statements, but a lot of it was behind your back. And when you go to Rastafari gatherings, whether it's in Jamaica or wherever, and so on. But there was never really no real hardcore feelings, because this was something that people could have felt the honesty and the love that we had for the works, and it was the idea of, here it is, coming from the bowels, coming from the from just the mere fact that we were able to get this work. Muta was able to reach out to somebody like Eulendorf to interview him at least a couple of times on Cutting Edge. So we would never. It was a big thing when we launched the book in Jamaica, Autobiography 1 and 2. It was a big thing when you launched it in St. Croix and St. Thomas. It was a big thing when you launched it here in North America. I mean, basically, it was welcome in our communities. And it was like, where the hell this little black man, this little young black man at the time, how he is able to get at? How are you able to obtain that? How are you able to deal with that situation? And so on. But we were able to open doors and cut doors, and the spirit of my ancestors, the spirit of Their Majesty and Empress Menen, the spirit of Attili Rogers, the spirit of all the great ancestors, Taki and Daga, and all these spirits was riding on our backs. So it's hard to really to fight against these spirits. We're moving with warrior spirits, we're moving with spirits of high priests and so on, guarding us on all sides. So it's that kind of thing we go through, and we trample the earth, because we know what we seeking. We seeking change, and we seeking elevation, we seeking education to lift up our people, and spirits. Yes, when you look at, I remember out of this whole thing, Umayas and them, they try to challenge me in relation to probably trying to get royalties and so on, how we get, and I spoke to Eulendorf, and Eulendorf said, there's no worry, these people, and so on. And I saw later on, I was bringing them to Chicago for the launch, and then the church kicked up a storm, kicked up rumpus against them coming to Chicago, Umayas and his cousin. And eventually we had to do it by telephone, launch the book at the Ethiopian restaurant by telephone. And we had paid them, send money for them for the ticket. I tell them I need my money back, because they said if they come to Chicago, the Orthodox Church, they said if they come to Chicago, they're going to have a lot of what they call demonstration from the airport all the way. So that kind of made them retreat from coming to Chicago for the launch. But eventually later on, he said they wanted to they had a book that they wanted us to publish, and we were in communication with his advisor, which is a Jewish guy who and I became close. He talks to me all the time. We talk. I pay them royalties for their book. The name of the book when it first came to me was like something like Speeches of Their Majesty or something like that. But I changed it and I put the spin on it and say, this is the wise mind of Their Majesty. This is the wise mind of Haile Selassie I. So I retitled it and wrote the introduction, wrote a forward to it, and he wrote the introduction to it, I think. And that is now history, because the Rastafari elders, the Rastafari community say that this is a book that they want every Rastafari brethren and sister should have. And once you have it as a pocket book, then came Chronics came, and he wrote a song about it, and therefore it became more it had to spread more and more like wildfire. Not only Rastafari youth, but all African youth, black youths all over the place, throughout the Caribbean, North America, and it's still inside the cell yet, because we want every Rastafari brethren, every African youth should have a copy of this weapon. And also another key book that I love even more than Wise Mind is Members of a New Race, that our brethren from Montego Bay, before he passed, he called me from New York and said he would like me to publish the book. So by the time he passed, we were putting it together. But that is our brethren.
Martin.
What he said?
Tony Martin?
No. Our brethren, they're talking about Members of a New Race.
Junior Manning.
Junior Manning, right? So yeah, so I love Members of a New Race even more than Wise Man, because to me as a Rasta man, bringing together the edits of it, he knows was more pointed for I and I. Give thanks.
Nice. In fact, the thing about both of those small publications is that they provide such a wonderful, unprejudicial introduction to a movement's core inspiration. And I found it almost essential when I'm leaving Jamaica to make sure I have a few of those. In fact, the only thing I can remember growing up is how they distributed the small New Testaments. And I really agree with you. We need to be able to engage in a reproduction task that sees us being able to distribute this far more equitably. I don't want to hog the platform, and I've already done so for the last hour or so. I'm sure there are persons here who may have questions to ask or comments. I'm gonna turn over to a public that might be interested in sharing the moment in relation to something that they might want to tease out with Ras Sekou. So, as I said, or if you don't wish to say it, you sorry, I didn't realize. Yes, Raskaima, I did see you in camera. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot how to do the electronic raising of the hand, but I'm the old school. Greetings, Ras Sekou. I give thanks for your likable works and your consistent works. You're unshakable, unflappable. You never turn back. We give thanks for those great works. There's so many questions here. I'm interested, for example, in how what precipitated your coming to Chicago is one thing, and how did that kind of pan out when you first arrived? But a more specific question, since we just touched on J. Ras Jr. Manning, and your publication of his Members of a New Race, I know that ISTA's early publications were tied in with something called the International Ethiopian Unification Committee or Council. That was something that formed in the aftermath of Prince Dawit's visit to Jamaica in 1987. And I know Ras Miguel, Bongo Time, Ras Ivai, and Ras J were all involved in that. I'm wondering if the I also had relations with that initiative. It seemed
I did not have full initiative, but I was in contact with ones who were part of the unit.
Can you speak a little bit about the Chicago period and how that came about?
Well, Chicago, I was in love with a woman who was from Chicago, who lived in Chicago, a Pan-African sister. She was a member of the All-African Revolutionary Party. I met her in Trinidad while I had returned to Trinidad to do public relations for a dance company called the Mpokoti Dance Group from Nigeria. And one of my brethren who had brought in the group to do the dance troupe from Nigeria to do a few shows in Trinidad. They brought me in from London to do the public relations, because public relations was one of my early what do you call strivings that I did in my youthful age years. So they brought me in to do that, and I met this beautiful sister who was a Pan-Africanist. She was a member of Kwame Toure's Stokely Party. She was also involved in the student movement, and from there we clicked, and I came back to London, and she went back to Chicago, and we kept corresponding, and the next thing you know, we were married legally, and she was studying studying nursing at Northwestern University, and then she wanted to come to England to study midwifery, but eventually she ended up becoming a nurse practitioner at out of University of Wisconsin-Madison. But that is how I ended up coming to Chicago, because of the love for a woman, African woman of much stature, and and we come to Chicago, and Chicago was one of them places, whereby every time you try to leave, it put you right back in, But so it was love. It was the love of a woman that brought me in.
For the love of a woman, we give thanks for that.
And her name was Sister Rafina.
What I wanted to remark on the fact that we first met in 2002 in Panama, but yes. I want to interject a historical footnote that that Panama trad, which was kind of put together by Rasila and a few others, some of the Panamanian brethren like Ras Nini, that was a historic moment, because I remember that we had a ceremony for the formal repatriation of the Holy Pibby
yes.
to Panama, yes, that took place in one of the public park areas in Cologne.
Yes.
And it was right, if memory serves correct, it was just adjacent to Marcus Garvey's Liberty Hall there.
Yes.
And so that was a momentous moment, because as we know, the Holy Pibby came from Jamaica in roughly 1924 and yes. Came from Panama and reached yes. Jamaica in 24, and yes. the I returned it in 2002.
Yes.
So many works, which also, if I was commenting on this, like Jelani, that the I has shown himself to be a true Pan-Africanist, a someone who is connected with so many nodes of contacts in the Black Atlantic world, and so some great works. Another kind of question.
And before you go on, Raskaimo, and remember that in Panama at the time, we were basically also introducing the first Black History Month. That was one of the reasons why the government basically, in alliance with Nini and Sila, they brought us in there, and it was very close to me, because a lot of my father's people, my grandfathers and my grandfather on my father's side, they worked in the Panama Canal, and in fact my grandfather Petia is still on the Panama Canal in there, and we still have relatives in the Panama Canal and in Panama from that time.
I think one of the things that Sosa Crew needs to do is to chart a map that links the I and all of your family's connections to the diaspora. I think we'd find that there's connections
the latest connection is my son, one of my sons from the woman I married here. He did a trace, ancestral trace, and it went all the way to Ramses III. They said it was a special pool that we came from.
Wow. Impressive. I'm also wondering about the 1983 Rita conference that was in Kingston,
Yes.
which for so many brethren and sistren in CRO and the Eastern Caribbean seems to have been a watershed, or we should probably say a fireball moment that gave a tremendous impetus for the movement across the Caribbean.
Yes.
Was the eye present? And if
No,
so,
I
what
didn't make it,
recollections?
but we sent Shango and Muntu Lalibala, right? Muntu Lalibala is now deceased, but we sent him as members, as representative of the Rastafari Burden Organization, which was the organization that we chose to put the newspaper Rastafari Speaks Out under the umbrella. So we had sent both, and then when they came, because in fact, Rita Marley sent us a ticket, or sent us 2 tickets actually, and I declined because I said, Shango and Muntu Muntu wanted to go very badly, so I said, let them have the experience of going, and so that's how I did not make that trip in 1983. But it was Rita Give Thanks who sent tickets for us to make that trip, because in fact it also said that Bob was one of the people who took Rastafari Speaks to different parts of the world when he was traveling at different times, whether it's to London or to parts of Africa and so on. So that is where that's coming from.
Oh,
Give thanks, my brother. I will give the floor to whomever wishes to follow up, but again, many, many thanks and gratitude for the mightiful works, my brother. Blessed
Give
love.
thanks, Ras Sekou. Give
Highly.
thanks.
Come on, blessed love, honorables, and give thanks for life and strength. I just wanted to thank you, Ras Sekou, for what you represent and all that you have done, are doing, and certainly will do as you remain very vigilant, vibrant, and extraordinarily active in the contemporary spaces of Rastafari and Pan-African work. I'm on Salute the Eye, representing also this team just from my humble office, and I want to say how happy Sosa Crew has been, is, and will remain with the Eye's work and presence on the platform.
Give thanks.
Yes, so also on the screen is an image of Elder Baba Ras Marcus, and one of the images that is there, actually, that image in color, it's gold and green. It says Rastafari Speaks at the bottom. Baba Ras Marcus was an active member, participant on that platform, and Jah willing, he transitioned on Sunday or late Saturday evening in the Baltimore community. And I really want to just block a reverence to him and take the opportunity, although it's really a celebration of the Eye's work within the context of the Rastafari family, but to extend it further to include our elders, and this elder in particular who just transitioned. We give glory and honor to the Father and Mother of creation for his life. But I also want to, from the Rastafari Elders album, just to share something with the family, and then have the Ras Sekou comment on any collaborations that you have had with our Honorable Elder Baba Ras Marcus. First, the sound from Baba Ras Marcus. Give thanks.
We are here to speak to the world tonight and today and every day, present, past, and future, telling the world of the truth and the rights that existed in this earth long time before miseries came to the earth. Every time that a creator trod the earth, or the creator trod to a certain structure, there is always skepticism and hism, and people saying, is this the God? How he's walking on earth in the days of Christ, when he was among the people, healing them and doing good for them. They said, he does good, but is he the Son of God? And they stoned him. And he said, is it for my good works? Why you stone me? And they said, no, but because thou art a man and make it thyself God. Jah Rastafari trod through this earth and been trotting through this earth for many, many thousands of years. Long before there was America, when there was no England, no France, no Scotland, no Wales, when the earth didn't have any name, when it was peaceful and loving. Jah Rastafari has been trotting through different structures. And the Creator traveled through many, many names from different times, and he come in different forms. And before we go further, the word Haile Selassie is an Amharic word, which means power of the Holy Trinity. And the power of the Holy Trinity must be God. And he's also the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah and the light of the world. So there's no argument about that. I don't have to argue that. But I would like to tell the world why the Rastafarian is here and what they're here to do. Many thousand years ago, or many hundreds of years ago, there was no black people in the Western Hemisphere. They were all in their peaceful habitation in the land of their forefathers. We were very kind people, and people who were helpless, we tried to show them love and to show them civilization, because civilization didn't flow up the River Nile. It flowed down the River Nile through Kemet and all those places. And we welcome them and show them love. And they come into our country, spy out our country, and then later on invade our country, take away our people and take them to the Western world and have them sit in captivity. But little did they know that when they were taking our people to the West, they were taking the Rastafarian as well. Because we came to the Western world in our forefathers' lines, to be born at this time, to stand up for the rights of our people. And we are here mystically and mysteriously. Now, many people say the Rastafarian movement was started in 1930, because that's what they think. But the Rastafarian movement been going on the slave plantation from all those slave rebellions coming up. It was the spirit of the Rastafarian at an earlier stage. And it come right up to Marcus Garvey. And then Marcus Garvey light a torch in Jamaica, and it burned in America. And it burned all over Europe. And it also light up Africa, that Africa become independent. And Marcus Garvey was also a Rastafarian at an earlier stage. And so is many other brethren who you may see they don't have a locks, they have a beard. Or they may not have, but the Rasta is a conception. What you think. So you can have Rasta working in this place and you don't even know, because the Spirit of God just take him up and make him do the Rasta work. A bird can fly, come in this place, and it's just Rastafari flying that bird to do a work. And we must not limit the power of Rastafari. And when we think of Rastafari, we mustn't think of him in Ethiopia alone. Because if God will only control Ethiopia, what would happen to us in America? What would happen to the people in England? How would we be able to breathe fresh air all around the world? Rastafari is everywhere, because God is an international God. So we want you to understand the cause of the Rastafarian, that we are here to make the world a better place through music, through songs, through love, through unity. And we will do all the good we can to all the people we can, in every way we can, as long as we can. So I would have to say, free the people. Africa for the African, those at home and those abroad. When that is accomplished, then we'll burn all guns and all evil weapons and bring back the hurt to a peaceful place as it was. And the springs of joy and happiness and kindness and love and unity shall flow across the universe as the waters cover the sea. Because the peace and love must cover this earth as the waters cover the seas. In the name of Jah Rastafari.
Aye. Yes.
Give thanks. I'm really glad that you found that extract. If you remember, our flyer says reasoning with Ras Sekou and family. And you know, as much as we have focused on Ras Sekou, we recognize everyone in this space at this time, particularly those celebrating Strong's or any kind of significant memorial. Just before we got on, we were recognizing Ras Marcus's passing, and I think it's the Elders album that you shared that he's a part of that, and this is an extract from that as well. And before you come in, Ras Sekou, as asked to comment on that, I noticed that you frame Rastafari as the continuation of a tradition from the Maroons to Marcus to present. This brethren now, I think, says similar things. So yes, over to you, Ras Sekou.
Yes, Ras Marcus was always part of a, what do we say? We give thanks for his energy. We had a platform on the internet that one of my brethren had set up, and it was global. Rastafari Speaks. It ran for a long time, and Ras Marcus was one of those people who found great synergy to be on that platform, because people from all over the Caribbean, all over the Black world, Rastafari brethren, would be part of that forum and bring things to light. When we look at what Ras Marcus is basically putting forward, totally in alignment, totally in agreement, in that Rastafari is and was a movement not basically coming out in the 1920s and 30s, but on a longer time, longer period, wherever in the Caribbean there was a slave rebellion, that was Rastafari in that dispensation. On the plantations, whether it was Kojo in Guyana, coffee in Guyana, in Jamaica, what they call the Cimarroons in Suriname. They were all, even in America here, what we had, the Buffalo Soldiers, Bob Marley pointed out. All these were Rastafari in a different dispensation. So Rastafari is not today, is not yesterday. Rastafari is from time. We come here and find ourselves here in the Western Hemisphere because we were captured, we were prisoners of war. None of our foreparents who came here peacefully. That's why some of our ancestors were prepared to throw themselves overboard rather than come to this Western Hemisphere and suffer. Though there were Africans here thousands of years before the Europeans came here, right? And history has proven that, right? Jairus Boy wrote a book, Ramses III, Father of Ancient America. What do you call Ivan Vasatima talk about the Africans who were here before Columbus. Even Columbus in his diary writes about when he reached the Haiti, and when he reached Cuba, actually, they were mastered there, and there were Africans there. There were the gold pointed arrows that the natives here, the Taino people, were using. They came from what they call from Mali, and the Mali word for gold was Ghana. So so we have a long history, and all these people were Rastafari people. So what we're doing now is a continuation in this dispensation, is a continuation of what was started a long time ago. Kojo, coffee, Nani, all on the plantation, fighting against the Spanish, fighting against the Portuguese, fighting against, in Brazil, Rastafari. And because is a movement built out of the struggle of African people, wherever we were, wherever we found ourselves, that is Rastafari. So yes, Ras Marcus was totally on point when he talks about the whole question of this did not start as some Europeans would want to point out, that this is some kind of yesterday thing. Rastafari has been here from time, from time. Our founding fathers, our ancestors in Africa were Rastafari in a different dispensation, because the whole concept of God is even a European concept. Because we know as Rastafari that the trees and the earth, the book, we don't need a Bible. We don't need a Bible to tell us how and to see Haile Selassie, because we can see Haile Selassie through nature. And that is how Rastafari people originally, the nature we saw Rastafari through nature, to the trees, to the seas, or to the sands of time. That is where the scrolls were written. So when we look at the trees and we look at the seas and we look at the rivers, that is where Rastafari is. The essence of Rastafari on the leaves, written on the sands of shores of time. This is Rastafari. Highly high.
Ras Sekou, kind of following on from that, do you have, given all that you know, any particular organizational preference within Rastafari through which you express yourself? I
love Nyabinghi, and I will say why I love Nyabinghi and I feel close to Nyabinghi, because Nyabinghi is the heart of Rastafari. So whether you're a 12 tribe, whether you're a Bobo Shanti, whether you're a whatever house or mansion you're from, the Nyabinghi house is the heart, the spirit, the liberty of Rastafari. That is where, so Nyabinghi, the mere fact that our woman from Uganda, the spirit of Nyabinghi. When we talk about Nyabinghi, we talk about a woman's spirit, a mother spirit, a warrior spirit, Nyabinghi, Queen Nyabinghi. So that is where my heart is more closer to in terms of Rastafari. But for the most part, I see it all non-aligned, because we get caught up in the houses of too much up and down and fighting and cliches and so on. But Nyabinghi is the order of life, and is the order of the woman, the order of the mother, the order of our sisters, the order of our daughters, the queens, the empresses. That is where the foundation is in Nyabinghi order. And we say no longer just death to black to this down pressers, but we say death to black and white down pressers in this time, in this dispensation.
Give thanks. I suppose that is an answer that kind of covers everything. The spirit of the movement and heartbeat, essence, as something that you are drawn to. I want to ask you about how you see now, and to say, as we move towards kind of winding up our gathering, that I'd love to see these conversations continue as a version of Rastafari Speak. That we don't have to exhaust ourselves here, because I'd really love to hear Ras Sekou talk a bit about gender equity and his own understanding of gender, but I'm not asking you to do that now. And
well, I could give a little short review.
Okay,
I'll give a short review, because I am one who stand on the shoulder of my mother. If my mother was my first educator, my mother is who I love. Do I love my father dearly, because he opened up my heart and my mind to African consciousness. But my mother is who taught us to learn and love the High Majesty Haile Selassie I. And I know that if we as Rastafari, we are behind on time. And I say we're behind on time because every other order has made sure to give the woman, make sure the woman has equality, because we can't give women equality. There's a natural grace from Mother Nature that we are all born equal, right? We may be equal, but we may be different. But the woman has to take her role, and we have to make sure the woman stands side by side with us as the High Majesty had Empress Menen at his side. We have to. Otherwise, we're not going forward. We cannot continue to uphold the Adam and Eve story, because long before Adam and Eve story, when we look at Denkadish, which is 3-point-something million years old, long before Adam and Eve. Eve was Eve according to the story of the biblical mythos. Eve was an afterthought created by those who created Eve out of that story. And we know that most of these stories that they found in the Bible came out of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And when we look at Paul, who says that the woman should be not be heard, she just should be seen. So he said, man is head of the woman, as Christ is head of the church. I don't want to be head of no woman, more so my woman. I don't want to. So we as Rastafari, we must look forward and look at the concept, look at what we follow in their majesty, and take these examples and stand side by side as we put our woman on the highest pinnacle. We give thanks.
Yes, Ras Sekou, could not have been better put. Why would you want to be the head of any woman? I can't see any reason why anyone would want to take on a double-headed life. Are there any questions? I see a number of persons in our chat. Thank you all for being here. I see Bongo Wisely. Bongo Wisely, any comments for our brethren? I know the Eastern Caribbean family is tight, and you know he's also a son of St. Lucia by virtue of such.
Yes, I greetings, Rastafari. Thanks, to be here on this platform this evening and to, yeah, man, be part of such a moment, Yeah, man, well, give thanks, Brother Sekou. Brother Sekou is a brethren, well, from times, I think, well, at the 83 conference, that's where I got in touch with Montu and
Shango
Baku. And then after that, I became almost like the agent for Rastafari Speaks, in St. Lucia, Ayanola, And a couple times I would have traveled to Trinidad, to attend agricultural workshops at the time at the university, and then I would be able to collect the papers. Sometimes it would be posted, but the papers Rastafari Speaks, well, it continued because in Ayanola, our first Rastafari publication came out around 1979, and it was called Calling Rastafari, but it never really continued. It continued up to about 83, 84, thereabout, and it kind of went down. But then Rastafari Speaks, kind of replaced it. And at the time, it really played a pivotal role in sharing the information, the knowledge of who Rastafari is at the time, because as a newspaper, we were able to go and sell it to people of all different levels, not only to Rastafari people. I would go to all different offices and so on, and because the presentation was outstanding, the red, gold, and green, and some of the features on the paper, that alone made the paper attractive. And it, as I said, apart from that aspect, in terms of the knowledge of Rastafari, because even with the reggae music, there was, different little people doubting this and that, but with the newspaper, it went further, in terms of educating the upcoming Rastafari nation at the time. So for that, Brother Sekou, I really want to give thanks, and I have continued up to now, because I was honestly, I was not even aware that of the RastafariSpeaks.com you know, and them kind of way there, you know. But Jalani made mention of the vibe of like the wise mind. The same way the Gideons and them people had the New Testament distributing to schools and all the different communities and so on. If we could find a way, you know, to get the publication of that, the wise mind of His Majesty, printed and made available, you know, whether we probably get sponsorship or whatever to do the publication, and where we could distribute it throughout the Rastafari community. Well, not only to the Rastafari community, but throughout wherever Rastafari is, we would be the ones distributing them. But, you know, to make sure that these words get better coverage, you know, because it is very important, even in these crucial times, especially Caribbean islands, you know, where even with the whole crime situation. Hello?
Go ahead, Bongo. You're good now.
Yes, I was saying, even with the whole crime situation within the Caribbean islands, the words of His Majesty is a comfort, you know, and if the youths and them could, you know, could have access to them things where they could, even when they sit down on the block, you know, and go through those things, it would really make an impact, you know. So I don't know how we could find the ways and means of making that book available in a much wider circulation, you know. So again, give thanks, Brother Sekou, and well, again, Sekou has been very close to the Caribbean Rastafari organization from its inception, you know. And again, your strength is something I will always be proud of, you know, and we give thanks that they are still there amongst I and can still share that strength again, you know. Yeah, man. So give thanks, Brother Sekou, Rastafari.
Give thanks, Bongo Wisely. Always a close brethren to I. Give thanks.
Yes, I give thanks. Give thanks. We still can take a couple more comments, questions, if there are any from anyone who hasn't spoken or who may wish to say something more.
Yeah, just as a point, Honorable Bongo Nia, as Bongo Wise just spoke about the wise mind and its availability, just to clarify and put in the public domain also, Ras Sekou did donate books that were brought into the Ubuntu Rastafari Cultural Center, and he also gave us books to be sold in the book center, and The Wise Mind is one of those books that we were promoting. We were getting it into the public foray, and certainly we have been encouraging the Rastafari family and the Pan-African family and others, particularly in St. Lucia during the period of time that we were doing the Justice and Healing Initiative, which is something that Ras Sekou has been intimately involved in, to ensure that they would come in and participate and gain the benefit of that literature. So just for the record, Bongo Wise, that book has long been in St. Lucia. It is still at the Ubuntu Rastafari Cultural Center, and it certainly is available. Yes, those that were brought in for donations are still certainly there, but for the most part, the books that are there are to, you know, unless Ras Sekou would underwrite those, but we have them for distribution, certainly at a small fee for recovery of whatever expenses were involved. So they're there, my brother. If through your own office you could mobilize and motivate from your whatever subventions are offered to the Rastafari community, it's there for the eyes them, and it's long been there, and that has been articulated multiple times. So let us then utilize that opportunity to share and spread and to make available to all. But again, a testimony to the work of Ras Sekou, who saw it fit to also make contributions in that regard. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks, Ras Wayne. And you know, the real essence is that through that wise mind, Ras Sekou has really provided us with a very accessible and transportable introduction of our grace through wisdom. You know, it's something that many persons use in Jamaica. I've heard, you know, radio station hosts reading from it regularly. It's also something that persons take in different spaces, like, you know, I've used it in my class, etc. I hear a possibility of, you know, our trying to make it more widely available generally. And, you know, first to our community, I think. So that's something that we can probably seek to collectively explore. And then as a wider circulation beyond our community.
Yes, I totally support.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, Ras Sekou, it's not just about you, but it's a lot about you. The contributions that you've afforded us are by no means small. It's really voluminous in the literal sense of that word.
It's 18 hours.
I trust that, you know, you do have a strategy to see us moving into a future. You want to just wrap up by suggesting some of the vision and, more importantly, the key tasks ahead of us, the things that we need to be mindful of moving forward and to continue the due diligence, just to give us the charge that you might wish. I want to, before I turn over to you, welcome Sister Eleanor, who I see has joined us. The most earth-strong and surrounding celebrations of life. Blessings to all of those who have significant days in this month. We celebrate women as well in this month, and our community particularly in this month. And we thank you for being a part of this moment. I want to turn over to you, Ras Sekou, for you to reflect on what is important for us as a family.
Well, I would like to say one of the greatest things, I think, as Rastafari people would be, we need to look and review where we are at this point in time as Rastafari. I want to continue the call that Mortimer Planner called out for, a new interpretation of Rastafari. And I think that should be the charge of the new interpretation of the faculty, a new faculty of interpretation. And that should be the charge for the School of Sacrament. It is important that we, who are part of the school, we make sure that we intertwine with the masters of Rastafari people and Pan-African people, and that we do not stay aloof from our brethren and sistren. And it's important that we continue to do virgin research and bring out to our audience and to the masses of people, as someone like Walter Rodney did when he was a lecturer at the University of West Indies Mona campus, by making sure we tap into the grassroots, we tap into the roots, we tap into the Rastafari brethren and sistren, and raise their level of consciousness and awareness. I think it's important that we start writing from our own voice. We need our own voice to be heard. So many years we had the Barretts and all these writing about Rastafari. And that was one of the things that I wanted to stop. because I think that we have so many scholars, but we want to have grassroots scholars as well. We want to have people who are intertwined with the masses of people within our community, the young press, because they are some of the most brightest sons and daughters you could find coming out of Trenchtown, coming out of places like Bacayard, coming out of places like in St. Lucia, the ghettos of St. Lucia, the ghettos of Antigua, the ghettos of Azania, South Africa, the ghettos of Lagos, the ghettos of Ghana. All these young brothers who are writing master's theses and dissertations, PhD theses, we need to have their works published. And that is one of the things that we would like to make sure as part of the faculty of this youth, of this faculty, as part of this School of Sacrament and Rastafari University. We need to chart that course. We need to make sure that we don't forget our women, to make sure that we want these bright women, our bright sisters, our bright empresses, we want them to be there with us to chart this course, because they are mothers, they are sisters, they are empresses, and therefore it's important that we make sure we bring them, we have them as part of this. And we must be able to listen, and we must be able to learn, we must be able to teach, and we must always remember the most important thing as we gather, we must remember our humility. And once we know what we are here to do, in both in service and renunciation, in the path of their majesties, this is the path I would like to see us go forward as we extend, and know we have to rewrite this writ of Rastafari. We no longer have to stand up for Trinity. We no longer need to sing the song of Sancties that the Anglican Church and the Presbyterian Church was singing and so on. No, we need to create our own songs within Rastafari, and we need to dance to our own music within the bowels of this Babylon system. And when we say the system must burn, we only can make it burn because we come together and we create, because we are the creators. Hail Yai, Haile Selassie I, Empress Menen, Kaswa, perfect love.
Yes, give thanks, Ras Sekou Sankara Tafari, our ranking global ambassador in international relations term. He would be described as a plenipotentiary, someone with tremendous authority to act and to move mountains on our behalf. And that he has done. He has also created mountains of knowledge and inspiration, not just in being on the front line of knowledge production, but also economics and business enterprises, and showing us that it's not rocket science. We have sterling examples that we must build on. Marcus Garvey has done so much. Ras Sekou continues in that tradition squarely and shows us that it's a real possibility and a real ability to do that which we must and can. Ras Sekou, I know on behalf of this space, the School of the Sacrament, we've been very, very honored to have you from the very foundation, diligent, consistent, wise mind counsel. We hope we can continue to draw on all that you bring and hopefully live up to the vision and expectations that we hold of ourselves together. I said it before at the top that, I want, is it someone's mic? Okay. So I want for us to continue these conversations when we were seeking to frame a way to meet as a family around this equinox, etc. The idea that our family had family days in the past, I think Brother Jakes mentioned that he experienced that in his early entry into the movement itself, that there were days that the family gathered. And now I think we have the ability to continue doing versions of family gatherings,
His Majesty.
family celebrations, particularly like this. We have in this space been meeting on the seasons, and it's really to realign ourselves back to basic planetary chemistry, sun, moon, stars, and the order of the seasons. I want to thank everyone for participating. I see the flyer presented here with Ras Sekou Sankara Tafari squarely inserted in the royal family, rightfully. I want to thank Dominic for the diligence in the production of that, and apologize to the wider public for not having provided a much more lengthy invitation for this event. It was something we felt important to begin, and it doesn't mean that this is the conclusion of this conversation. We hope that it can continue. We continue to invite significant members of our community to share their inspiration with us here, and whatever it is that are the issues in front of us, many of them important, we sweep under the carpet, and they are really important for us to embrace and engage and help each other through those issues. I want to again reach out. I know Brother Miguel Lawrence celebrates an Earth Strong tomorrow. I'm planning
also Sister Mincy, also Mama Mitzi.
Also Mama Mitzi. So we wish them both, the most upful celebration of life and, blessings that is possible. I do plan to connect with Brother Miguel myself, and I'll update the family, those who are not in touch with him. But yes, there is much to do. I'm reminded by our celebrated speaker, family leader this evening that, His Majesty had a secretary at the foot of the bed, to be able to action ideas as they arose, so to speak. And I suppose that is the hour we're at, where our family and our wider humanity need our actions, particularly in the production of relevant, inspirational content for our safe passage into a habitable planet and future, etc. Ras Sekou, we will continue to work together to build what we must, going forward. And Rastafari Speaks continues, I would say. And we thank you again for bringing us that capacity, that standard and that ability to inspire and to do. Ras Bongo Wisely, I wondered if you would provide, I don't know if you know Ras Marcus. You can Marlon rather, Marlon. Okay, but you know Ras Sekou? Okay, well, a brethren is passing through from the continent and all over the world of Pan-African, I thought he might have been someone that people know. Yeah, man. I'm just healing up the family.
Bless up.
Yes, sir. Give thanks.
Bongo Wisely, bless up.
Yeah, man. All right.
Rastafari. Yes, I.
All right, we'll come St. Lucia very soon.
See. All right. It's a brethren who lived in Africa for a while, in Zimbabwe in particular. Marlon is a musician as well, and one of the activists in our community. So yeah, man, it was hailing me as he exited, and I wasn't getting to say the departure. So I wanted to share the moments with the wider family, you know.
Give thanks.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
the brethren who said that he would be coming to St. Lucia soon.
it's Marlon.
Who is he?
Marlon.
Amlak.
Yes.
Oh, Amlak. Ire. Yes,
Yeah, man.
yeah, man. Well, I could always link you know.
Seeing. And I'm asking you to seal us up, Bongo wisely. We're keeping it in the Eastern Caribbean celebration, you know. So if you don't mind just sealing up the reasoning for us, in the way you see fit. Thanks.
Yeah, man, no problem. Give thanks. Rastafari. As we say, glory to word, glory to sound, glory be to the powers of the living eye, Hilii, Selassie, and Empress Menenai. Perfect balance. I will lift up I eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh I help. I help cometh from the Most High, Haile Selassie, who I rated Zion and the earth. I will not suffer I foot to be moved. Him that keepeth I shall not slumber. Behold, him that keepeth Ethiopia shall neither slumber nor sleep. For the eyes I keeper, the eyes I shade upon I right hand. By the eye protection, the sun shall not smite I by day, nor the moon by night. The eye shall preserve I from all evil. The eye shall preserve I life. The eye shall preserve I yarding out and yarding in, from this Iowa unto that Iowa, and even forever and forever. Hilii, Selassie, Rastafari. O Most High, we do give thanks for this moment where we could have come together to celebrate the works of our beloved brethren. We do give thanks for all ones and ones who were present, all what was said and done. We do pray that I would continue to use these as strength for I along this journey. As we depart to our place of abode, we do pray that I would continue to guide and protect I and keep I safe from the hands of the enemy. And may these words of I mouth and the meditations of I heart ever be humble and acceptable in thy sight, I strength and I redeemer, the I who long live and reign forever and ever. In the I, Selassie, Rastafari, and Amen. Perfect love, Rastafari.
Yes, we give thanks. We give thanks for the community. We give thanks for the love.
Yes, I give thanks. Ras Wayne, I think we were going to share going out some of the drumming that we started with from that album, which features, is it Brother Marcus is on it as well?
Yes, Honorable, it's coming right forward. Give thanks.
All right, and much appreciation and thanks. This reasoning, we have not streamed live, but anticipation is that we will be able to share it for those who were not able to participate. We'll let you know when that is possible. And once more, yes, give thanks.
Life of creation.
Yeah, man, Ras Wayne, give thanks for sharing that recording, of Baba Wayne, Marcus, because all the time I know the reasoning, I've heard of Ras Marcus, I never thought that was his reasoning there all the time.
Yes,
Yeah, man, give thanks for sharing that there this day,
Rastafari. Give thanks, my brother. Blessed Lord. Yes, honorable family. Bongania,
Yes, my brother.
please go forward.
Yeah, man. Well, we're at 23 minutes past 6, and our intention was to not disrupt your spring equinox too much by asking you to spend too much time here. but really to ensure that we had some time together, and we thank you all for affording us that. I started off by saying that the magic, it's said, of this seasonal moment is harnessed when we gather, we celebrate each other, love, music, dance, light a fire, and have a moment of introspection moving forward. I hope that this has provided such. And yeah, Ras Sekou, your example tells us that we have much to do, and we trust that you will continue to help us with that. I want to give thanks again for those here, and to trust that the time has been meaningfully spent, and that you will join us again in the future for us to continue with these virtual Rastafari Speak sessions. So with that, we're going to sign off for the evening, and again thank our guest of honor, Ras Sekou, for providing us such a fruitful point of focus. Thanks again for all who made this possible.
Give thanks.
Blessings, give thanks.
Yes, I give thanks. Perfect love.
Yes, I.
Love.
Yes, give thanks, Ras Sekou.
Yes, I. Give thanks, Ras Dominic. Good job on the flyer.
Give thanks.
Yes, I.